YouTube and Ninth Age community, this is Charles, Nevershade Gaming, and I'm bringing you another Ninth Age Battle Reports. So I decided, I feel like I'm behind the battle report curve. I had the hardest time getting my pictures off my phone. I don't know what, I like edited them all on my phone. I thought like, oh man, this is going to make it so quick. And I was so wrong. And I don't know what happened. And my phone just was not syncing with my computer. And just, it was a travesty. Finally got pictures uploaded. And I decided to just kind of go ahead and just talk about my first day at Buckeye Battles. Not the doubles tournament, but the first day of the grand tournament, as they call it, the GT. And I thought it'd be interesting just to look at the day as a whole, because, you know, one game is one game, but kind of looking at a day might shed a little bit more perspective on the tournament and just how exactly it went for me. So, yeah. So this video is going to be the first 3 games I played at Buckeye Battles. I can't really talk about the first 2 games without talking about my list first. So, the list I took to battle Buckeye Battles. So, I think a lot of people watched or maybe heard about it somehow through like our list reviews. But the list I took is a triple Griffin list, which is just really interesting. So I've got 3 Griffin Marshals, and they've got very similar saves. So my general is got a 2-up, 5-up, 3-up Aegis against Flaming, and then just a lance and a pistol. Then I had one with the Winter Cloak, but he's got the Alchemist ally, so he's still got a 2-up, 5-up. He's a little bit worse in combat, but I mean, the Marshals don't really do as much damage. It's the Griffins over time that do more, you know, because they're consistently strength 6. And then one more Marshal with the Death Cheater, which the Fort Regent and the Fort Fortitude can be quite nice. Obviously, but there's also some counters to that Fort Fortitude as well. Then I've got a single wizard. It says apprentice, but that is definitely wrong. He was an adept. It's the points for an adept. I think it's just I'm gonna stop using quartermaster. This is like a big announcement. I've been a quartermaster like supporter for ages. I've loved it. I've used it all 8th edition. I've been using it all of 9th Age. I've been basically having to update my own templates every time an edition comes out, but I think I'm finally gonna switch over to Battle Scribe or something like that, I guess. And I'm pretty sure that just the apprentice thing is wrong, I think. But anyway, he's an adept. He's got 2 spells, 3 with the magic arrow, rockin' divination. And then I also have a marshal with the black steel and the crown of the Wizard King. In the battle, he's a BSB with the shield, so he's got a 1-up on foot, which is great still. That guy was pretty interesting all tournament, actually. I kind of thought, I mostly had him because he becomes a wizard apprentice, and then he helps the divination spells by giving him extra 3 inches. And I thought, you know, one more spell might help round out my magic, because my magic's pretty minimal in this list. But maybe that's going to happen when you have, I'm exactly at 800 points in characters, so that's just going to happen when you have 3 flying characters in the list. So then looking at the core of my list, I have 2 things of heavy infantry. Those are my scoring units. I like them. They're great. And then 2 things of light infantry. One with crossbows, one with handguns. That's kind of my preferred thing to go. I've been thinking about going all crossbows because I like the range. But then there's some games where you really want those handguns for the AP2. And it's just really strong. And I think they really flow with the marksman pendant. And then 10 State Militia. I haven't taken these guys in a while. They got skirmish. I needed a wizard bunker. I've been basically only playing with a wizard with on a cart. So when he's on foot, you gotta have him bunker. And I didn't really want to put him in heavy infantry because those guys move forward a lot. He could go in the Imperial Guard, but so I decided to run some militia. And I'll probably talk about how I felt they did this tournament in the end. And then I have 24 Imperial Guard with great weapons and full command and the banner of unity. So great weapons probably a little bit of a weird choice. I mostly did it because of the models, to be honest. Although I was interested in trying out them as a small kind of brick. I thought the strength, like kind of some consistent strength 6 attacks could help the list as well, instead of just more strength 4 or you know, lower strength attacks. If I just ran them with shields. And originally when I was kind of playtesting the 3 Marshal Griffins, I think I had Knights' Sun Griffin in there, but I felt like I had a hard time getting objectives. I just like that unit had no staying power on an objective. They can, they can go beat up units, but they can't really sit on objective because they can't really take charges as well. Or, I mean, against some units they can, but against a lot of units they can't, so. And then 24 Flagellants. I love this list because it's almost maxed out in the Suna's Fury category. I think there's literally maybe, if I had one more Flagellant, I think I would be over on Suna's Fury. I've got a Steam Tank and then a Cannon. And that rounds out my 4,500 point Empire Sunstall list. So then looking at, I played Jason Shoup, who, just going to say as a heads up and a shout out to him, he won General's Choice at Buckeye Battles. His list, or his army, fantastic looking. I hope it comes through. So I think some of the pictures you'll see, some of the models he's created, it's just amazing. His archers are so good, his thick beasts are great, and his tree fathers, he calls them tree daddies. His tree daddies are really spectacular. So his list is he's got 2 Thicket Shepherds, one with the Toxic Spores, one with Entangled Vines. And I think the Thicket Shepherd with the Toxic Spores is the general. Then he's got a Druid Master with Shamanism, Tiles with Void Magic Aerum, great caster, that works. 3 things of Elves with Bows and Core, lots of banners. I was kind of surprised to see how much full command was on there. I think it makes sense. And it also worked for him in our game a couple times to have that full command. He did not use the Banner of Deception in the blind deployment, which would have been really strong time to use it, but I think he was generally happy where his archers ended up. Then he's got 2 things of Thicket Beasts with just one's got a champion, one's got a Cahambian, and then 2 Tree Fathers, or as Mr. Shoup likes to call them, Tree Daddy. So, this is kind of just going over all the objectives and deployments for the first 3 games. So the first game was classic Buckeye scenario is blind deployment. So they put screens up in front of you so you can't see what your opponent's doing. It's just frontline clash though, so 12 inches up and then hold the ground objective. So, which is pretty straightforward for blind deployment. And then game 2 is refuse flank and breakthrough, and you'll be able to see that in the pictures later. And then game 3 is marching columns and capture the flag, which is a nice combination, I think. So, starting with my deployment, I've got the Griffin on the left there with the red cape and the red banner on his flag. He is the Marshal with the Winter's Cloak. And then I've got my Steam Tank and Cannon kind of real close to each other. One of my units of heavy infantry next to my Imperial Guard in the center, and then the other unit of heavy infantry on the other side. I was kind of looking to use those guys to capture objectives. Then I've got my Militia and my Wizard behind that guy, all those guys. And then both my light infantry kind of right in the middle. I think there was one forest kind of towards the back on his side of the board, and then I don't think I knew where his forest was going to be yet at this point. My general on a Griffin is the kind of Marshal with the blue and white striped cloak, and obviously it's the biggest Griffin. And then the Griffin with the Death Cheater is the one with the gray wings. The smaller one is the oldest model, technically, which is funny. And then I've got my flags kind of nestled in the hill, and then my Timmy hose that I had that morning on my dice tray. So his deployment. So he put one Tree Father on the left, kind of facing my Steam Tank. His smallest unit of archers on the hill. And then both of his Thicket Beasts right in the middle of the board, which is right where they should be. His forest went right in front of there, and then you can see where the hold the center is to that Buckeye. And then his other archers to the right, and one of the Tree Fathers right in the middle. And the Wizard ends up being on the hill in the small unit of archers. So I ended up winning the roll to go off with blind deployment. I believe he got to pick table sides, so then I get a +1, and I took it, and I went first. So I moved up as so. Yeah, I was really having a hard time trying to decide what to do with hold center, because I wanted to get stuff close enough, but it's just Thicket Beasts are hard to move. put a lot of orders down, a couple ready aim fires, and my BSB, you know, he's got the banner unity in his unit, so he's basically always targeting his unit with something. A lot of times it's like, oh, we'll just put steady men here, or maybe we'll put brace for impact. Doesn't even matter, you know, they're not fighting, but that 8 inches is pretty long, and a lot of times I was able to hit a lot of stuff. My supporting units quite a bit, which I have a lot of supporting units in this army too. This is what my right flank looks like. Move one of my Griffin with a Death Cheater pretty far up. So one of the best things with Buckeye Battles, they gave us all Veil tokens, so I try to use them as much as possible. So in the first Magic phase, I pretty much got 5 dice and 3 Veil tokens, and I'm pretty sure I just saved my Veil tokens. I believe I don't really get much magic off. I might have got Real to hit off or Altered Sight on one of my shooting units. I just pick on the archers in the woods, and I kill, like, what, 7 of them or something like that? Or no, 8, because there's 12 in that unit, so I was pretty excited about that. I thought that was going to be helpful. And then I really don't have a pick of his turn 1 movement. He moved up aggressively with one of his Tree Fathers. One of his Tree Father on the left moved up aggressively. His Tree Father on the right actually charged my Griffin on the hill, and I failed my terror test, and it pushed me back. And then it failed its charge. And then he moved the forest basically onto the objective marker. The magic phase, he casts Swarm of Insects at my wizard, and he throws 3 dice, gets 3/5, so he loses a spell, which he was pretty bummed about. This is a good picture showing how he moved that forest in the middle, and then this is actually the start of Empire Soundstall turn 2. So I rally my Griffin that fled, and then just kind of, again, moving up at this point. I don't move up close enough to contest the objective, though, which is going to end up hurting me in the long run. And then able to put ready aim on, I think, most of my shooting units still, between my general and the Imperial Guard with banner unity. I get the stars to line off of my handgunners. They shoot, and they're able to put 1 wound on the Tree Daddy, which is really great. And then my crossbowmen are able to finish off those archers in the wood, which is also really great. And then my cannon, oh my gosh, this guy rolls... I think he took 3 wounds from the Swarm of Insects. I want to say he hit a Tree Father turn 1, and the Tree Father passes Aegis, and now he rolled double 1s, so he's just out of the game. And then this is actually on my turn 2. I tried this Tree Father. He calls this one the Proctologist, apparently, because he's got 2 fingers going forward. I don't know what that means. I mean, I do know what it means, but I'm not going to dignify what it means. So I've got the Steam Tank in this guy and my Marshal with the Winter Cloak. And between the 2 models, I'm able to kill him. I believe, actually, the Tree Father... I believe the Tree Father does put a wound on my Marshal. And my Great Griffin and my Marshal contributed no wounds to this. It was all the impact hits, and I ended up using my breath weapon to finish him off. I reform with my Marshal, so I can see the Thicket Beasts, but they can't see me. And then I can see the archers on the hill, which is really his main target at this point. And then, yeah, this is Sylvan Elves turn 2. He moves up on the objective marker, so he's got both the units in range, so he's going to get a counter at the end of this turn. He moves his Tree Father kind of over a little bit still. I've been actually trying to charge... I believe I tried to charge his Tree Father with my Flagellants my previous turn. Needed a 10 with the Flagellants on the hill, but I couldn't get it. I mean, it's like a 10 on 2 dice. He gets quite a bit of dice in this magic phase, but not really great rolls. I'm able to stop a couple things. The only thing he gets off is the Forest Embrace on this Marshal. And then shooting, he puts a wound on with his archers. And then start of EoS turn 3. So I put on the double and brace for impact on my Imperial Guard. Radiant Fire, and I attempt to charge my Flagellants again. They needed a 10 again at the Tree Daddy and my Marshal at the Tree Daddy, but I failed with both. And then I put my Steam Tank into the flank during the random movement phase, but I attempted to charge my Imperial Guard at the Thicket Beasts, and they failed. They needed like a... I think they needed like a 4 or 5 on the... Or not a 4, because it would have been... Probably needed like a 5 on the dice, and I just couldn't get it. And then blurry picture, but I charged my Marshal on a Great Griffin with the Winter Cloak into the Archers, and that's got his Wizard in it. So I'm hoping to just kind of kill that Wizard soon. The Magic phase, I can't remember what card I pulled, but I get a decent phase. Converted 2 Veil tokens to dice, so it looks like it's 6, 7, 8 dice. It's pretty good. And I didn't get any spells off. My Magic was pretty... I found it to be really bad. I don't know if it was because I had an ad at the tournament and I just missed having a Master, but spoiler alert, I found I had a really rough time with Magic. I feel like I didn't have enough of my Magic in my list, but I feel like overall I just poor dice too. And the close combat phase, he uses his champion just to sacrifice him to not kind of get killed. And it works. He doesn't run away. I mean, I get max overkill, but he stays. And then the Steam Tank does 1 wound, and the Thicker Beasts do a wound back. So spicy combat there. And then this it must be Sylvan Elf turn 3. At this point, he doesn't really have that much movement, really, because his archers in the back just keep backing up and shooting at one of my Griffins. His Thicker Beasts and one of his Tree Fathers charge one of my units of heavy infantry that are kind of blocking right near the objective. Yep, this is the Sylvan Archers. So in the Magic phase, he's able to get the one of his Totanic summons up, which was pretty frustrating. And I believe this is also its breath weapon. Actually, this might not be its breath weapon yet, but I want to say it's going to breath weapon the militia and take him down to, I think, 1 model or something like that, and the wizard. The archers shoot at this guy, and they put 2 wounds on him. Oh, I was like, I mean, I know they're strength 4. I think they have AP 1 still, but yeah, I could not make saves over here. In this combat, the wizard... Actually, no, the wizard didn't challenge, which allowed me to kill a bunch of fairy archers, which are really cool looking, by the way. And this time, they fail, I want to say? They either fail this round or they fail the next round, and I'm going to end up getting them. And then start of EoS turn 4. Charge one of my Great Griffins into his archers. Survived the stand and shoot, thankfully. And then oh man, this was stung. I turned these guys around because I didn't really know what I was going to do in the middle with them. And I failed like a 10-inch charge right here against this Totanic Summit. You can see the archer's been reduced by their breath weapon, which was a bummer because it would have been nice just to put this unit of heavy infantry in there, and then I wouldn't have even had to turn my shooting around, which is what I ended up doing. So this is a good picture of what the game looks like. I charged my my general into his other Tree Father. He's got, I think, 2 wounds on him. I don't expect to kill him, but I'm hoping to do some damage at the very least. My Flagellant's also charged, and I totally didn't realize that I forgot about the forest rule, and I lost 8 flags going through the forest on a failed charge. Oof. And I also put my Imperial Guard into the Thick Beasts. And the Magic phase, this is probably after converting. I have 7 dice, and I don't think I get a spell off. Couldn't get Altered Sight off anywhere. Or I might have been able to get Altered Sight off of my crossbow or something like that, but I was not able to get... I pretty much... I guess I didn't even talk about my spells, but almost the entire tournament, I can just say this right now, I ran Altered Sight, Stars Align, and then I would either run Fireball for a little bit of extra damage, or it's if I wasn't running Altered Sight. And I had Fate's Judgment a lot of times too from Divination. There was a couple games I ran Fireball, and I think there was one game where I ran Quicksilver against Warriors of the Dark Gods. And then this game, I rolled Witchcraft up for the Crown of the Wizard King, which was really cool, but I think I used the movement spell once. So this is the phase where I finally beat down all those archers, which is great. Get their points, and the wizard's points. My militia moves up with his pistol, and he pops a cap in the Totanic Summon's kneecap, which is pretty cool. And then over here, the combat does not go well. generally. I believe this round, my Marshal and the Tree Father, I believe it's just a push, and I think it's because he does like a wound or two, and I might do a wound, or it's just my charge against my one wound, and we just are sitting there. And then in the combat with the Imperial Guard, I think I was also trying to... I wanted to put Stars Align on either one of those combats, because either one would have been really good, and I didn't get it for either one, and I rolled pretty average or poor, and it just doesn't really help. I mean, it's not great matchups. Like the Imperial Guard into Thick of Beasts is not a good matchup, but I think I felt the pressure to try and do something about these scoring units in the middle of the board. To try and get some points, but I probably should have just let the Steam Tank grind against it all game and save points. So, and then this Marshal beats down those archers, no problem. I believe I didn't pursue, and I was able to just reform. And then on the end of Sylvan Elf turn 4, he's able to kill the rest of the Imperial Guard. My BSB runs away, which is nice, so he's gonna, he's probably gonna be safe. But yeah, I lost all my Imperial Guard. And then also, I don't even know how I got a picture of this. I think I was like probably freaking out and thinking I was about to lose the game big time. But my general broke from combat, and it might have actually broke on his turn 4. No, yeah, it was no. He broke on his turn 4, and then he's gonna rally on my turn 5, thankfully. And then this is like 2 turns ahead. This is the top of turn 5. My Flagellants are now chaffing up his Thick of Beasts that were not engaged with the Steam Tank, and he charged his remaining Tree Father into my General, and I believe I put 2 wounds on him. He put none on me. I won combat. He fled, and I pursued him down, and it was a huge turn, because I thought, like, oh man, I thought he was about to just beat my General. Either kill him or do like a wound and have like another combat res and possibly make me flee, but I just rolled pretty well, and yeah, I was able to put the smackdown on the Tree Father and get him off the board. After combat with the Flagellants, there's only 2 left, but that's okay because they'll hold him up on his turn. And then, man, in one round of combat, the Steam Tank received 4 wounds, and I failed all 4 armor saves. And it went from only having 2 wounds on it to 6 wounds. This is actually his final turn. And this is actually the one unit of Thick Beasts that were fighting the Flagellants. They turn around because there were no Griffins to fight, and they just go in there to finish out the Steam Tank, and they do, and this is actually the last picture of the game. So I'm going to talk about how all the games ended up at the end of the video. So going into Game 2, I play against Mr. Todd Mcgee and Mcgee. Sorry, I keep saying Muggy instead of Mcgee. I don't know. And so he's running Warriors Dark Guards. He's got a Barbarian Chief. That's his general. He's got, I believe, just a 1-up with the Hero's Heart. The Wordstone, which is that thing that gives him like a 4-up Aegis for 1 round of combat. And I don't know if it does anything else, but I know it does that. He's got a Sorcerer Master with Alkalism and Alchemist Alloy and Tells with Shielding, so he's also got a 1-up on those War Diases. And then he's got 14 Warriors of Greed with the Icon of Infinite, Whole Command, Favorite Champion, and then 20 Barbs, which it's kind of funny to see that it was only 20 Barbs because it felt a lot larger. But you'll see how he builds that unit in a second. With full command, the Banner of Discipline, 5 Barbarian Horsemen with a standard in the Wasteland Torch on the Wasteland, 5 Chaos Knights of Greed with full or standard Musician, maybe a Champion, I don't know if they can take one or not, and the Stalker standard, and then 1 Forsaken one, 1 Battle Shrine, 1 Marauding Giant, and I forgot to say, but he has the Tribal Spear, and then 4 Wretched ones. So this one is Refused Flank, so cut the board diagonally. And this is actually the start of my deployment. So I've got my Flagellants on my far left with one of my units heavy infantry, one of my Griffins a little bit forward to kind of put a little bit of a charge threat out there. And then he's got crossbowmen behind him, a cannon behind them, and then next to them is the handgunners. In a forest are my Imperial Guard with my BSB. And to the right of the Imperial Guard are my 10 Militia with my Wizard, my General, the other Marshal with the Death Cheater, the Steam Tank, and finishing off one of the units of Heavy Infantry on my far right. His deployment, pretty simple. He's got Horsemen on the left, Barbarians in the middle, War Shrine, Warriors with his Sorcerer in it. The Barbarians have the Giant and the General Barbarian Chief in it. His 5 Chosen Knights of Greed, his 4 Wretched Ones, and his Forsaken one. Warriors are always pretty compact, aren't they? So this one I ended up dropping a lot to just go first. Because I think I only had my crossbowmen in range, but I figured I'd get like a couple cannon shots off turn 1, 2. Move my flagellants up a little bit to make way for my heavy infantry to move behind them, and I'm able to do ready aim fire on both of the light infantry. And don't move up a little bit with the steam tank, I think, to maybe get within short range on the Forsaken one. And yeah, just generally just move up a little bit. I obviously don't want to move up too far because he has some long charge threats. But I also gotta put some bubbles out on him to keep him back too. Get like I think I got the 5/9 magic phase, and I saved 3 Veiled Hogans because I really didn't need all those dice. I got Altered Sight off, and the Stars Align. He stops my magic missiles, which end up shooting all my crossbows at the Barbarians. I felt like for hitting on 3s and re-rolling, I think I only killed 7, which sounds good, but I felt like I rolled pretty poor on the 2-wound roll. But I mean, 7 Barbarians is still a good start. And then my cannon ends up doing 3 wounds to the Forsaken one, and my steam tank misses. And then actually, this is the start of his turn 1. Random movement. He didn't have any charges, so these guys all go. And the Forsaken one, I think rolls like a 16 or a 17 to get the steam tank. But at this point, I'm not too worried because it's only got 3 wounds left, and I think I actually get to grind before it with agility 3, so that's pretty cool. And then this is how the rest of his army's looking up. So he's got 2 units on the hill. He moves those Barbarian Horsemen around. It's breakthrough, so he's trying to get them in a place where he can score with them. He's a little bit worried about the flags charging him. And then yeah, he's just moving up. He uses the first spell from Oculism, the Pentagram of Pain, to do a couple wounds over here. It's like, okay, whatever. And then I believe he might get the breath weapon off on something, or maybe, I can't really remember. But my steam tank is able to kill the Forsaken one and doesn't take any damage in return, which is great. One of the things I remember, I played against a Forsaken one at Siege of the Tower, and I remember thinking, wow, these monsters are so good with that Strength 6, but I found out later on they're only AP 2, and I felt like that was decent. I think it's still a good monster, but I remember thinking like it was so powerful, but only AP 2 tempers it against a few things, I think. So, start of Empress Onslaught, turn 2. Charge both my Griffins on my right side of the board into his Greed Knights. I mean, these guys are just tough and annoying to deal with, and I just figured, there's no reason to wait. I thought this was probably one of the better times I was going to have. I couldn't wait, really. If I didn't charge, they were going to charge something else on my side. Yeah, that's how the board looks. I got my steam tank random moves into his Wretched Ones, which I think I'll also just grind them out over time. I don't think he's going to get any wounds through with only AP 1. And this is how the rest of the board's looking. So in this combat, I think I take a couple wounds. I think he might have... I don't think he put the breath weapon here. This might be the breath weapon. Or it might just be me failing a couple ones, but I took a couple wounds in combat. Put a Fate's Judgment on his Battle Shrine, but it... I think it does 2 wounds, which is not bad for it having like a... I think it has a 3 of armor save, so I was pretty happy about that. And then I shoot the Barbarians, and I shoot the Warriors, and I take some wounds off here and there. And then in this combat, this was a real bummer, because I actually had my Wizard in range, and I think I threw like 4 dice 4. I don't think I threw 5. I think they're 4 dice, the bubbled up version of the Stars Align, and I would have had both characters in range, and I failed to cast it, which was such a bummer, because I felt like that would have been so helpful, just re-rolling hit with all my attacks. Because everything's strength 6, so everything's like wounding on 2s, and so I ended up doing 4 wounds to the Knights of Greed, and they rock great weapons, because even if they rocked halberds or paired weapons, I would have gone first anyway with agility 6. So they come back, and I believe they do 2 wounds to my general, no wounds to my other marshal, which is okay. So I win combat, but they stick. And this is why I moved my Imperial Guard up, so that his warriors would not be able to flank my marshal right there on the right. I moved him up just enough so that he could not wheel past that. And then he actually charges both of the units, the Battle Shrine and his warriors, into my Imperial Guard, but he fails with the warriors. He needed they're 10 inches away. He needed a 6 on 2 dice with a reroll, and he rolled double 1s, and then he rolled a 5. And oh man, I feel for you, Todd. That was a really crucial part of this game that went really badly for you. And then magic doesn't really do too much. You see the steam tank gets like another wound, but he's working through those guys. I think they're down to like obviously one's dead, but I think the other one's only got like 1 wound left or something like that. In the combat with the marshals on the griffins, my general gets killed, which was such a bummer. And then he's down to just 3 guys. I think one of them might have a wound somewhere, and I think we tied in combat. And if we didn't, I was able to pass my break test because my BSB is so close. At the start of Empire Sonnstyle turn 3, I charged my Flagellants. This last previous turn, he moved his Barbarians up pretty close. And I was able to charge with my Flagellants and my Marshal into these guys. I was a little bit nervous about putting the flags in, because sometimes they can generate a lot of combat res for my opponent, but I was hoping that with the Griffin going first, I'll be able to take out a lot of attacks, and then hopefully the Flagellants don't take too much damage, so that they could, and then possibly also dish out a ton, and then I could just kind of overwhelm them with combat res. And I originally charged my this marshal on the Griffin at the Horsemen, but they fled, so I got to redirect into the Barbarians. So this is what the game looks like. We're pretty much engaged in combat in most places. I get this turn 3 to shoot at his warriors and try and kill as many of those guys before they go into my Imperial Guard. His Battle Shrine did a ton of wounds to. He just rolled like his max impact hits. Like, he hit and wounded with so many of his like grinding attacks from the base part. Oh man, it killed, and I just couldn't make sometimes I had 5 ups, sometimes I had 6 ups. I just couldn't make any armor saves, so I lost a lot of Imperial Guard. So I need to try and kill a lot of warriors this turn in order to not just get wiped out by that warrior unit at this point. Magic phase, I get 5 dice, 6 veil tokens. I believe I convert them all. I can't really remember getting too many spells. Again, my magic was just poor this game, as was the first game. But in combat, I'm able to do another, looks like probably 3 wounds, which at this point, and he does no wounds to me. This was a part where it was really great to have that fortitude. Fortitude was great. As you can see, the wretched ones are almost dead, and I've got that little unit of heavy infantry moving into a scoring area, which is great. In the combat with the Griffin and the Chosen of Greed, I beat them. I do not chase them down, or I do chase after them, but I do not catch them. And this was like a picture before I moved my Griffin. And then in the combat with the Barbarians, we pretty much kill all the Barbarians. He failed a fear test from my Griffin, and that was critical because fear is so powerful when you lose that. It basically saved a lot of flags, and then it let the flags do a lot of damage. So we didn't do any damage to a general because he's got such a good save. We put 4 or 5 wounds on the giant, I want to say, with the flags. killed all barbarians. He was losing by a ton of combat res. I think he auto broke, and then we pursued him down, and we end up there. So not quite into the barbarian horsemen, but I'm like an inch away from them. And then this is the this would be probably Warriors Norcod's turn 3. He puts his remaining warriors into my Imperial Guard. They finished off the battle shrine on my previous turn, and they're in kind of like a weird formation. That last guy is just within 8 inches of the handgunners. So I was able to use the detachment roll, and I was like, this is so cool. I was like, I haven't been able to really like capitalize that in a long time, but of course I think I only did 2 wounds, which is good. I mean, it's definitely good to kill like 2 warriors before they get to combat. But like I was hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, and I just rolled really poorly. I think I only did do 2 wounds, but he failed both his armor saves. So I felt cool using the detachment rule, but I felt like I wish I rolled a little bit better, because it would have been nice to only have to kill like 1 or 2 warriors or something like that. And then his chosen Knights of Greed rally, which is not that surprising. And then, yeah, this is showing how close they were. Just within 8 inches on my last guy, which I thought was pretty cool. Because, yeah, they had ready aim fire on them, too. But they just couldn't roll hot. Although it doesn't really end up mattering that much. Kind of just over a couple rounds of combat. And I think I finally got a little bit of magic off here and there. We were able to really just whittle down the few remaining warriors and kill them and pursue his wizard off. His wizard ended up challenging, which I put my BSB in there because I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't want any attacks on my BSB anyway. And they couldn't do anything to each other since they both had 1-ups. And he had up 5 pages. And yeah, just slowly, kind of with some strength 6 attacks, was able to grind out those warriors. They were only strength 4, I think, so they had a hard time doing a lot of damage. Was actually finally rolled a couple armor saves too, so that was great. Good job, Imperial Guard. And then this is the last picture I have. My Great Griffin on, I believe this is just turn 4. Might be turn 5, but it's probably just turn 4. Goes into the Knights of Greed again, and he kills 1 more. And this guy breaks from combat, and I pursue him down, and that's the end of the game. So, and as you can see, those heavy infantry have made their way across the board and into the enemy zone. So we'll talk about how this game ends up scoring out at the end of the video, as I was going to do with the first video, or the first game. Game 3. O'byran Jennings. Awesome guy. Really excited to... never got to play him before. Was really excited to play him. Vampire Covenants. Man, I feel like I've been hearing a lot of people say, like, Vampire Covenants, so good, like Vampire Covenants. Have you played them? It's like Vampire Covenants are so strong, which I haven't not played them in forever. So it was kind of really interesting to finally get in a game against them. And O'Brien was running basically a Brotherhood of the Dragon, a Brotherhood, gosh, so many typos. Brotherhood of the Dragon list with 3 vampires all rocking that bloodline. His general vampire count's got Eternal Duelist, the Shield Breaker, so no armor saves, but he can only win on a 3-up, which is fine when you're strength 5. He's got the Legend of Black King, which is such a good item, plus 1 armor save, 4-up Aegis. He's got a little Path of Occultism going, and then he's on a steed. He's got a Vampire Courtier. This guy's also Brotherhood of the Dragon, Lance, Eternal Duelist, Steed, Occultism. And then 1 more Vampire Courtier. This guy's on foot. He's got Brotherhood of the Dragon, Eternal Duelist, Willow's Ward, Path of Occultism, and the True Thirst. Which I believe, or I know what True Thirst does. I believe this guy has a 2-up. I'm thinking he might have a shield too. I think True Thirst is just a melee weapon enchantment. I don't think it's like a, yeah. I think he's got a 2-up, which is pretty good on foot. And when you're a vampire, resilience 5. So the vampire with the True Thirst goes on the ghouls. Big unit of 40 ghouls. 2 things of 20 zombos. That's fine. With musicians, they're just filling out scoring. 2 things of bad swarms. They also fill out core, which is amazing, and they're great chaff. 10 Bear Knights, that's where the 2 Vampire counts on the steeds go in there. They got full command at Manor Speed, which is amazing. A Dark Coach, 5 Vampire Knights, and a Varkalak. So this game is marching columns, and the objective is capture the flag. So he's picked what would be my left corner, his right corner, and he started with his Vampire Knights actually, which is a really interesting drop because those 5 Vampire Knights are tough as nails. They got 1 up armor save, so strong, strength 5 attacks, strength 7 on the charge, really scary. If those guys, go into a Griffin, they're killing in 1 round. Next to them, he put his zombies, one of his unit Bat Swarms, other zombies, and then he dropped his Knights. And then on my side, I started off with heavy infantry, militia, handgunners. The handgunners, I finally felt comfortable dropping the handgunners once I saw the Knights go down. And then we actually almost continued dropping 1 at a time. This is one of the, I think I had 2 games where we pretty much kept dropping 1 at a time because we were really interested to see where units were going instead of just plopping. I think I had 2 games where I plopped, 1 blind deployment, 2 games where we actually played the whole deployment phase out. So his deployment ends with him going Bat Swarms, Dark Coach, Ghouls, and his Varkalak. The Varkalak's the really big, tall guy on the hill, and that finishes his deployment out. The way I round out my deployment is I put 2 Griffins down on my right side, and then I put which is cool because they're characters so that, they ignore the marching columns. Put the crossbowmen all the way in the back of the edge board, which this board looks kind of weird, but that wooden part of the board is actually part of the 48 inches of the board, of the short edge. And next to them is the cannon, which is behind my Imperial Guard, but they are basically just going to shoot at the Dark Coach and shoot at the Varkalak. I wasn't too worried about it. Next to my Imperial Guard is my Steam Tank, and then my Flagellants are on my left with my General behind them. And I was not thrilled that I ended up having both my Unbreakable units on the same side of the board. I like having them on other sides of the board, but it's really just kind of the way this deployment ended up. I didn't really love how I deployed. I thought I could have done a lot better of a job, and I almost wish I plopped, not necessarily even to go first, but to maybe have had a more cohesive deployment, because I felt like I was doing things piecemeal and it sounded good at first, but then in the end it didn't. I didn't think it looked. I think it looked okay, but I wish I had a couple units flip-flopped here and there. And Vampire Covenants go first. So he moves up with his Knights. Pretty much everything moves up, except I don't think the zombies really go anywhere too fast. Yeah, the Knights move up quite a bit. My Griffin's way too far away to charge, and my Flagellants are really far away to charge too. And then the Varkalak gets a nice position on the hill, and then he's getting a little bit of soft cover for his Bat Swarms. And then his Dark Coach isn't getting cover, but it's getting close to that field. So yeah, this is another kind of good picture of how the board looks. This is actually Empire Sonstal turn 1, I mean. And then he doesn't do anything with magic as turn 1. I think he might bring up some zombies, but that's about it. That's all he can really do. His magic is super limited in this game. All he has is the Dead Arise spell or whatever on his 3 dudes. But even just having that one spell, it can be very effective. So I've got all sorts of orders out. I don't think the handgunners can shoot anything, but the crossbows can shoot. But I don't know. When you just have so many orders, you just put them on units and just say, whatever. So this is what my magic phase looks like. I have 6 dice. Get a Quicksilver Lash off, does a wound. And then I actually have Druidism this game, which was really interesting. So I get the Healing Water spell. And I attempted to cast Oaken Throne, but I failed. And then in the shooting phase, I kill 1 Bat Swarm, but there's 1 left. And then I think I missed with both my cannon and my Steam Tank into the Dark Coach. So, Vampire Covenant's turn 2. He charges his Varcollect at, I want to say, my Marshal on the left there, the one with the Winter Cloak. And he fails it, thankfully. It was pretty far. We're kind of playing like, who's going to charge? He's going to charge. He had the hill, so he had a decent chance. But he fails, and he only goes forward about 3 or 4 inches. So, he didn't fail big time. Yep, that's him. Kind of right at the edge of that hill. And then that's his Vampire Knights going into my Flagellants too. Which I mean, I don't know if I would say it was a surprise. He kind of had to deal with them, I guess, and that's probably one of his better units to deal with it, because that one doesn't have any of his vampires in it. And he can always kind of bring those wounds back up. And, I mean, they got a 1-up, so I'm only... he's got 3 ups and all that strength 5. So, yeah. He's probably going to be okay. Yep. And then in combat, though, I get a it's honestly my most phenomenal roll, probably, of the day. Definitely. I ended up killing 4 Vampire Knights, which I thought was really, really hot. And this actually gave me a lot of hope, and I was thinking, like, oh, wow, I killed 4. I might actually be able to outgrind these guys. We'll see. And then at the start of Empire Sonsal, turn 3, I charge both of my Griffins, and make it with both of my Griffins, into his Varcollect. And I thought this was really exciting. I get the Oaken thrown off on my BSB. And I do another Quicksilver Lash, and I think I do another wound on the Quicksilver, on the coach. I mean, I'm wounding on a 3-up, which is nice. I think I keep getting, like, 2 hits and doing, like, 2 wounds, and then he fails, like, 1 Aegis save. And then we go into combat, and oh my gosh! I flub with both Griffins. I was, like, thinking in my head, I'm like, oh... These are all hitting on wounded, because they're like the same offensive, defensive. Technically, the guy with the Winter Cloak is a 3, but he's still hitting on 4-up. I'm like, okay, I've got like, what, 8 attacks between the Griffins and 6 attacks between the 2 Marshals? Let me just pick up 14 dice, and I'm just going to roll them all together. I rolled these 14 dice, I got 2 hits. 2 hits hitting on 4s. And I did 1 wound then. And I think it gets past his Fortitude. Actually, I don't think it gets past his... I think he makes his Fortitude. And then he doesn't do anything to me. And he just takes 1 wound from the charge. And I'm stuck there. And it's really bad. I really wanted to blow past this guy. Because as you can see, there's a big unit of ghouls right there with a vampire in them. Right in my flank. And that is just not fun and not good news. Over in this combat, he kills 4. I think I do 1 wound. Yeah, I don't. This was the point where I was thinking like, oh man, before we started rolling, I was still optimistic that like, hey, I might be able to outgrind these guys, and who knows, maybe I'll actually have some Flagellants left. No, it's not happening. It needed to happen this turn, and it didn't, and it's probably not going to happen at this point. So, yep, those ghouls go into one of my Marshals, which is just so frustrating. I was so sad when that happened. He puts one of his Bat Swarms into my Flagellants. And then I move my Steam Tank up, kind of sort of in a chaffing roll. And it does chaff up his Knights pretty well, but he charges them in there. Let's see if he can take care of it. I think I moved up and I did my breath weapon, and I got like 7 or 8 hits, and I did 1 wound. But the problem with Vampire Covenants is you can't just do 1 wound sometimes. Like 1 wound is like nothing. Nothing when they can just raise them up again. And this is what the board looks like. So this is Vampire Covenant's turn 3. I think I said when I charged my Griffins into his Varcollect, that was my turn 3, but that was my Empire Sonsal turn 2. This is turn 3. So, yeah. He's chaffing me up with his Bat Swarms in front of my Imperial Guard. His coach is kind of moving forward, but it's getting cover from the field, so it doesn't really feel like it has any need to go anywhere. and it can always run in and help wherever it needs to. And combat, or in Magic, this is Magic. He brings up another knight, which is like, this is when I was like, oh, this is hopeless. Like, I'm not gonna get these vampire knights. He's gonna be able to bring up one every phase if he wants. And then this is Empire Sunstar turn 3. So combat's pretty much just a grind everywhere, except I didn't even show the marshals, the griffins on my right flank. That was obviously I'm gonna lose that. So both end up fleeing. I think I needed like 3s not to break, because I can't do any wounds to Far Collect. He's passing his fortitude saves. They're too hot. And then I think I do 1 wound and a challenge to his Vampire Courtier on foot, and he does 1 wound to me. But he's coming in with like 6 static combat res. So both Griffins flee, and one of them, the one with the gray wings, gets chased down by the Varkalect. The ghouls chase after the one with the winter cloak, but he gets away. So this is now Empire Sunstar turn 3, the magic phase. So I charged my general into one of the zombies on this turn, and I also charged these Imperial Guard into the bat swarms, because I'm not too far away from his knights. I'm able to get the Regen spell up, which is pretty sweet. I'm able to kill the Dark Coach with my light infantry. And then this is in combat. My general kills a bunch of zombies. They're still around. That's okay. And then I'd kill another Vampire Knight. But again, at this point, I've only got 3 flags. I'm not going to be able to fully, get rid of that unit at this point with only 3 guys left, unless he fails all his armor saves really spectacularly. He kills the steam tank. He did like 6 wounds to it the previous turn. I did a few with grinding. And I was able to dictate the combats in this turn, so I let him kill the steam tank. He reformed, and then I go into the bat swarms. I kill them all, and then I'm actually able to make my overrun. It was I think it was a 7-inch overrun, and I'm able to get into this unit of knights. So I thought this might be one of the best ways that I could possibly deal with this unit with my Imperial Guard. And this is on his, this is like his turn 4. Some of these pictures, they're not even out of order. I just missed a lot of pictures this game. I felt like it was like the last game of the day, and it was an exhausting game. Unfortunately, we don't even finish this game, but he ends up, this Griffin who got away rallies, and he gets charged by the Varkalek in the flank again. So I have to fight the Varkalek again, and I think the Varkalek has no wounds on him. I think it's past. I think it's past like a vampiric once. The vampiric 3 up on the Varkalek is amazing. Varkalek's so good. I have a newfound respect and fear for the Varkalek after this game. Let's just say that. And then in the magic phase, he's able to get all his knights back. You just can't stop it. He had all 3 of his casters. Because the one cast of the one courtier in the ghouls was just within 18 inches, so you could just cast it. So it's going to happen, one way or another. And I think I might have been able to stop him raising up the knights at least. So he didn't get back another knight, but they do finish off my flagellants. Can't really do anything about that. And then in the combat on his turn, I don't even do that much damage, as you can see. And he does quite a bit to me, even though I had a 4 fortitude. He rolls like, I think, 4 or 5 lethal strikes with his knights. His knights just sort of like, hey, eat lethal strikes, and just kills like a ton of my guys. And obviously his vampires are still doing a lot of damage, even with a fortitude save. So this is Empire Sunstar turn 4. Charge my Great Griffin into the rear of the knights. Again, I was kind of like, had a lot of optimism that I could possibly do something here with this unit, and then by like doing enough damage somehow, I was probably blind optimism at this point, but kind of hoping it's hope that with some hot dice I could possibly, just possibly, break this unit, maybe kill a vampire, maybe, get the vampire courtier, or maybe kill the vampire courtier, get down to the general, maybe work on the general or something like that. Instead, I'll talk about this game, what I should have done with my Great Griffin, or my general. which would have been so much bigger. But that was the choice I went with. And then this is really what the board looks like. This is actually a great picture to show what the board's looking like. So this is a great kind of time to talk about scoring units. So at this point, I have 5 scoring units in my army, and all 5 are alive. He has got only 4 in his army. His 2 knight units is... Actually, sorry, he's got 5 too. His 2 zombies, his 2 knight units, and his ghouls. I've killed one of the zombie units with my general on the griffin. And again, I think I was counting on the second one to be either that lone vampire knight or the black knights. And I chaff his ghouls with my militia, and I've actually tried to charge one of my units of heavy infantry into the Varcollect just to pump some combat res in that guy, because I can't get past his fortitude. But they fail. It was like a 10-inch charge or 11-inch, and they fail. So, yes, this is what the game is looking like at the bottom of turn 4. So, in combat, it just goes awful. My griffin flubs again. My general just I think he does 1 wound between all of his attacks, and I think he's hitting on 3s against the Black Knights. I want to say they're just defensive 4. So he was hitting on 3s and wounding on 2s, and between some attacks, all at strength 6, I only get 1 wound on those guys. I do a few wounds with my Imperial Guard. I ended up breaking with my Great Griffin general, and he flees, and then my Imperial Guard hold. And I just felt like I feel like I've thrown a lot. In the magic phase, I tried to get the fortitude spell off, but I either failed it or he was able to dispel it, and I couldn't get anything else. My wizard's on the other side of the board trying to help out other people. But yeah, I just couldn't get anything to jive. And then on his turn 5, he puts the bat storms in there, and then he actually charges his zombies at my general, who flees, and that's why he's in the forest. And then he wipes out the rest of my Imperial Guard on his turn 5. And that ends up being his last turn because we were running out of time. He kills my light infantry. He's been putting wounds on my Great Griffin. I barely putting wounds on him. And then on my final turn, turn 5, I'm able to get my heavy infantry into the Varcollect. And I don't even kill it, actually. This is a bad picture. The Varcollect, unfortunately, it's such a big kind of creature on a small base, and it kept tipping over. It ends up killing my Great Griffin over here, and ends up getting a nice Thunder Stomp to save it from all the combat res that these guys come in with. And I think it just takes 1 more wound. It only does 1 wound to my guy, takes 1 more wound from combat res, and it stays alive with full points. Oh my gosh, this one model did so much in his whole army. It's crazy. And then this was really devastating for me. So I threw a lot of magic and a lot of shooting at his knight units, because he only had a few bear knights left, and I was able to cast a Quicksilver Lash at this unit, and I think there were 4 dudes left, and I want to say I rolled again 2 hits, and I killed 2 more knights. So then they were down to 2 knights, and I'm like, man, I need to kill this Vampire Knight, or I need to kill these Bear Knights. So I shoot my cannon at the Vampire Knight, and I hit, which is so exciting because it hasn't been hitting all game. And then I fail to wound against the Vampire Knight, and he stays alive. And then I throw my crossbows. I don't even think they have Ready and Fire or anything like that at the Vampire Knights, and I get a great number of hits. Got to deviate them up. I think I still put 3 or 4 wounds on his vampires, or on his Black Knights. I rolled pretty well again, but he's able to make saves, and he only loses 1 more, and he still has he's still got a scoring unit left. And since I lost my Imperial Guard, I ended up losing my 1 scoring unit. And this is what the end of the game looks like. My general rallied, thankfully, but he's got that 1 frickin' Vampire Knight who he attempted to charge the cannon and he failed. So I felt like I think I shot the cannon 1 turn at him too, missed, and then I hit and I was like, yes, and of course a 1. What can he do? Couldn't get any of his other scoring units. We're actually starting to clean up at this point and tally things, but I wanted to get one more picture to try and capture what was left. So if we went one more turn, he definitely would have won too. He ends up winning anyway, but he definitely would have won even harder because the ghouls would have had a good chance to possibly get one of my units of light infantry. Or actually at that angle, maybe just get the wizard and then go... Actually no, because he probably could have got my wizard overrun, possibly. I probably would have had to flee with my wizard and then hope that he just fails his charge in the light infantry. But I think he was chaffing up his knights, so actually, if they probably slid over, they probably would have been free. They might have been able to get in the crossbows. Maybe not the best thing to risk on the last turn, because maybe with a stand and shoot, I might kill that one other Barrow Knight, and that's kind of like, that could be really game-changing, because obviously there's another scoring unit, and he would just trade scoring units at that point. But that Vampire Knight, I wouldn't be able to kill, because he would be able to kill the cannon, and then go off the board, and then I can't charge him turn 6. And, yeah. At the very least, I probably would have been bleeding scoring units if we played one more turn, I think. So, to stop on turn 5 ended up being very beneficial for me. I wasn't deliberately trying to slow play or anything like that. I think that's just the way our game ended up. So, day 1 results. How did this day go? So, game 1... I don't know if it was hard to tell or not, but it ended up being a 10-10 draw. And probably pretty obvious, but I did lose the objective that one. I think there was only one turn where I had 2 units actually contesting the objective, but he ended up getting like 3 or 4 markers. And so I ended up winning on battle points, because the only thing he had left was his Thicket Beasts, or 1 unit of Thicket Beasts, and his 2 Shepherds. I had like... all my Griffins left. I think a couple of them were giving up half points, but I had all my Griffins left. My BSB, I think he didn't rally, but he still was like on the board, so he just gave up half points. Had all my core basically, except 1 unit of heavy infantry on the board, and I think my cannon was still alive, just in a corner somewhere. So I had a decent amount of my army left alive. He just won on the objective. So it was a 13-7, ended up going to a 10-10 draw. Game 2, easy 20-0. I don't want to say easy, but it ended up being a 20-0. I think that was my best matchup, definitely. Warriors, I find the Warriors can be a hard matchup if they roll kind of like well with their armor saves a lot of times, and roll well with like their charges. But Todd's list was a little bit slower than I think some Warriors lists can be, and it was really only like one big monster that I was able to shoot at turn 1 and then kill him on his turn 1, and then I won the objective with one of my units of heavy infantry getting into his deployment zone. Game 3. This was what I feel like my most salty game, the game I felt the most disappointed in. Mostly for like a few reasons. One, we didn't get to finish it, which I always feel bad not finishing game, whether or not it's bad for myself or bad for my opponent. In this case, it was, I think, worse for my opponent. But I mean, also it's kind of hard to predict sometimes because you never know how the dice are going to roll. But if I could have just killed that Vampire Knight, that literally was my mantra the entire night. I just kept being like, man, if only I could have killed that Vampire Knight. I'm like eating dinner. I'm like, yeah, man, if only I could have killed that Vampire Knight. But seriously, if I only could have killed that one Vampire Knight, I think it would have ended up being a draw, honestly. Because obviously those Vampire Knights are quite expensive, but then I actually ended up winning the objective because we ended up tying with him getting my Imperial Guard and me getting a zombie. And I was saying earlier that how my general went into the rear of those Barrow Knight, or those Black Knights. He should have just charged the Vampire Knight. That killed me. Like, I really thought that I was either going to be able to kill him with my cannon or kill him some other way. And I thought there was so much potential in the middle where there to kill the Black Knights. But I should have just charged my general at him. I would have had to take a couple DTs. I mean, he's got a 1-up, but I think just going in with like a charge, and I think I would have had a flank. I have a really good chance just to kind of, we might just bounce at each other. And then I just kind of beat him with combat res. Or, I mean, there's even a decent chance to kill him outright with 7 strength 6 attacks. But it should have just done that, and I didn't, unfortunately, so I ended up getting a 14-6 loss. So my day 1 final results are I had 36 battle points. It was a 0 on the objective because I lost tied 1. And then I'm looking at a 1-1-1. I'm looking at a 1-1-1 for my games. 1 win, 1 loss, 1 tie. And also for my objectives, too. So the day was 1-1-1. And that was the first day of Buckeye Battles. And mixed results, obviously. I felt pretty good going into game 3. I was happy to tie Jason. I thought that... I don't want to say that was a result I was hoping for, but I felt like that was a reasonable result because those Sycopetes are tough. I don't really have anything that can really grind through those guys really well unless I got like all 3 Griffins into one unit and I had the Wizard nearby to all give them like reroll to hit and divine attacks. That's the only way I could probably like really grind through a unit. Most likely it would have had to been some kind of combination of shooting, but it's so hard to dedicate shooting against those guys because they shrug off shooting really well. And then against Todd, yeah, I think that was my best. That's probably ended up being my best matchup of all Buckeye Battles because again, it was a slower Warriors list. I didn't really find its magic to be all that terrifying, and then I felt like the worst units were those 2 unbreakable units, and I think he both put them on the same side. And that might have been a small mistake because if those wretched ones were like against the flagellants, I think he would have had a really good opportunity to really do some damage. So I want to thank everybody for watching. This is Charles Featherhead Gaming, and again, this has been Buckeye Battles Day 1, and I will have the Day 2 video coming up very soon. I hope this was enjoyable. I know it's kind of a bit long, but it'd probably be the same length if you watched all 3 battle reports. And I hope this was pretty cohesive to follow. And I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be seeing you soon. And shout out to my boy Dino, Alex. He ended up just uploading a battle report probably yesterday by the time you can possibly see this. Really excited about that. I actually can't wait to watch his battle report because he actually played Jason recently with his Beast Turd. And I'm sure that's going to be a really spicy game. So I would check that out. And again, thank you for watching. See you soon.